Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Allie.
And it has been a week back in the WSL. We're going to jump right into it. But before we do, I'm really excited for this because all I know here is that Allie texted me a photo. Can I say of who?
Yeah, do it.
Allie sent me a photo of Alex Scott and said I have a story to tell. And that's all I know. So, Allie, take it away.
I'd like to point out I was in the photo with Alex Scott. I've not just randomly Alright, so I warn you now, there's a lot of detail, so you may want to skip if you want to get straight to the football. We'll put a timestamp. So anyway, coming back from West Ham game on Sunday, and I'm back in travel now, so I get little perks, including I can upgrade myself to first class for very little money on a train. So after, spoiler alert, West Ham losing, I decided to do that to help the pain of of this loss.
You're like, I need to pamper myself a little bit. I deserve this.
I deserve this. So I upgraded myself to first class, right? So I'm sat on the train, minding my own business, train's about to depart, and then suddenly on jumps Alex Scott into the first class carriage. I am internally freaking out because I'm like, it's Alex freaking Scott. So I do the logical thing and I text my friend who I'd been at the football at in all caps being like, Alex Scott is on my train.
As anybody would. You're like, act normal, make sure she doesn't think that I'm crazy, and text everybody I know.
Exactly. I repeat, Alex Scott is on my train. What do I do? And then my friend was like, go say hello. And I'm like, oh, but it's her downtime. Do I want to be that person that's
classic
bothering her? And she was watching the Arsenal Reading game on her phone. Because where I was sat, I could see her phone and she was watching that. And my friend was like, if you don't go over there, I will tweet at her to tell her that you are in the carriage and want to say hello.
That's a good friend.
I will do that. And I was like, oh, whatever, dares you. And so she did anyway. And then, so I'm internally freaking out. And then I did the next logical thing was I polled my football group whether or not I should go over and say hello.
Oh my God, Allie.
So I spent
let me guess. Let me guess the ending of the story. Alex Scott got off the train before you could decide what you were ever going to do.
No, because the next stop was a really random place in the Midlands, so I knew she wouldn't be going there. So I was I had a poll, and I spent 20 minutes, so basically the first half of the Arsenal Reading game, going back and forth with my football team about whether or not I should go say hello. Am I bothering her? They all were like, yes, go, you idiot. She's not going to care for 2 minutes, and then she'll go back to it. And I was like, I'll go at half-time. And then my coach, Coach Mia, shout out Coach Mia, gave me the best incentive, which was, if you go get Alex Scott's autograph, you don't have to run laps for the next 3 training sessions.
That's a great incentive.
And frankly, that was the best incentive, plus it was a great opener. So we got to half-time, and I just had a barrage of messages being like, go, 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 go! It's half-time! Arsenal are winning, she'll be happy. So I go over, she had her earpods in, so she looks up at me, and I get the Alex Scott smile, that beaming.
She knew what you were there for.
I'm in a Lisa Evans. I'm in a Lisa Evans football shirt.
Okay.
It's very clear that I'm a fan, and I was like, I'm really sorry to bother you, but I am a big fan, and my football team have egged me on to come say hello. And then I told her the story about not having to run laps. So she signed my West Ham programme because that's the only piece of paper that I had on me. And then she goes, well, we can do a selfie so you've got extra proof.
Oh, that's really
that we
sweet.
met. And I was like, oh, okay. Take the worst selfie because I can't take selfies to save my life.
We'll post it. It's not that bad.
We'll post it. It's terrible. She looks great. I look awful. Anyway, so then I've breathed. I'm the hero of the purple squad for the Manchester Laces. She then turns to me about 3 minutes later and goes, wait a minute. West Ham, but you're going back to Manchester. And I was like, oh yeah, home and away, And she went, respect, and gave me a fist bump.
Aww.
And I almost died when she did that. And then she went back to the Reading game. I went back to internally, I was so bright red. If you look at the picture, I am so red.
I'm going to pull up the picture right now.
From this. Right.
That's so sweet.
So that, and then we just didn't have any other thing after that. And then I got off the stop before her, and as I walked past, she made a point of waving goodbye and smiling at me as I went past. And I'm like, Oh, if I wasn't already married. Alex Scott, you are such a babe.
So properly just sweet. Definitely worth the time to tell that story. We will be posting this photo no matter how bad Allie feels like they look. And let's get into the football of it. All right, and over to the WSL. What a weekend. We're going to run through and do something we don't do a lot. We're just going to do a quick rundown of all of the games, and then we're going to spend the longest amount of time here on Chelsea versus Manchester United, the top of the table battle. But before we get there, let's go for it. First, we are going to Liverpool versus Tottenham. Liverpool ended up winning 2-1. Tottenham scored first and then immediately conceded and then conceded again. And just in kind of classic Tottenham fashion this season, it was we go up and then we lose it. So, Allie, thoughts on this game overall on both sides of the ball?
I think, again, it's what we said time and time again. They improved Spurs in the wrong area. It was both Liverpool goals came from defensive mistakes, or not even like positioning wise, defenders shouldn't have put their goalkeeper in that position, and they did it twice is the honest answer. And as we record, Rehan Skinner has been fired from Tottenham. However, I do fear it might be a little bit too late.
I mean, this is an interesting relegation battle discussion that we're going to have to not have now, and we'll have like more in depth in the weeks to come. Because look, Tottenham haven't won a WSL game since the end of October versus Brighton. They have been falling and falling, and I feel like they have been swept under the rug because Brighton's been falling faster, to be totally frank. But this is a full-on relegation battle now, not only between Brighton and Leicester City, but Tottenham is completely in this now. They're only 2 points ahead of bottom of the table Leicester City.
Yeah, and I think in terms of Liverpool, they sorted themselves out at the beginning of this season, so I think they've cemented themselves to push on for next season. So they may not have had the greatest run of results, but they've managed to push some wins where needed. And then to fellow relegation battlers Brighton, who took on Manchester City. They lost 2-1, but the scoreline is not a reflection of the game, I have to say. Brighton were on fire this game. It's probably some of the best football I've seen them play this season. New manager bounce and all of that.
You know, I've got to say, I actually thought they played well against Chelsea in their midweek game as well.
Yeah.
I really did. You know, Chelsea's first goal came off of a penalty kick that should never have been called for a multitude of reasons, and it was kind of downhill from there. And the scoreline there also isn't really a reflection. Brighton are playing better when you're seeing them. But the storyline of this game, I'm sorry, isn't even Brighton. It is, frankly, not even Manchester City. It's Bunny Shaw. As it frankly has been for this entire season. And we've highlighted Bunny Shaw before because we've been saying, you know, she's not getting the airtime that she deserves as one of, if not the leading scorer, depending on, you know, when we're talking about this. Sometimes it's Daly, sometimes it's Shaw, in the WSL. And Bunny Shaw has really, in almost like Mallory Swanson fashion, put Man City on her back. She scored the opening goal in the 21st minute. Brighton equalized, and it was a 1-1 game. And if it had not been for Bunny Shaw's 89th minute goal, Man City would have been walking away with 1 point from this game. Bunny Shaw is the player to watch in this league right now.
Yeah, fantastic stat. Manchester City have scored 5 goals this month. All of them have come from Bunny Shaw.
Here we go. All right, over to Leicester City versus Everton. This ended in a 0-0 draw. Allie, thoughts on this game?
Leicester, if you had told me by Christmas that they could battle their way out of relegation, I would have laughed in your face. But they have come screaming out. There is 1 point between them and Brighton at the moment, and I can see them doing it because they've got to play Brighton again, and they beat Brighton, and I think they can do it again.
Absolutely. I mean, if we're just looking at 2023, Leicester City is leaps and bounds beyond Brighton. They've won 2 of their last 5. There's a draw in there. They've only dropped 2. So, absolutely. And what about Everton?
They are the most inconsistent team in this league at the moment. They are so frustrating.
The only thing that is consistent about Everton over the course of the years in the WSL is that they're inconsistent.
Yeah, they are a frustrating team to watch, and I feel sorry for every Everton fan because one minute they are flying high and they are, unstoppable, and then it was really poor. They had like one good shot this game towards the end. I think Everton will be just grateful that they can't get relegated, the way things stand so far. Yeah, from where it stands now, and we say it every year with Everton, they can kick off.
Yeah, now from a team that has made some of the worst off-season moves, Everton, to a team that has made some of the best in Aston Villa, who took on West Ham and beat West Ham 2-1. You were there. I'll let you comment on West Ham, but I just have to say, and I'm sorry to keep saying that I called it, but if I called it right, I'm going to keep saying it. I called this about Aston Villa at the beginning of the season. They are absolutely on fire. Aston Villa sitting with 26 points. That's just 6 points behind Arsenal in 5th place. Rachel Daly, the mid-season edition of Jordan Nobbs. I mean, you pair that with like a Lucy Staniforth in the middle, and Aston Villa are just absolutely on fire.
They are.
And how do you feel about West Ham's play in this unfortunate loss?
Defense. It was all defense because the goals, like if you look at Daly's goal and you look at Nobbs's goal, there was nothing Matt could have done for that. Like it was top bins. It was an absolute power shot. She's not getting a hand on that. But as I said previously with Tottenham, Daly should not have been in that position. She picked the ball up from a loose pass from, I think it was Grace Fisk, and managed to get the goal. And it was a very similar story with Jordan Nobbs, picked up a loose pass from Lucy Parker and got her goal. So defensively, West Ham need to sort themselves out.
Mm-hmm. And finally, let's go to Arsenal versus Reading. We were wrong about Arsenal. At least in the past couple games, they've proved us wrong. We thought it was down and out. And let me just be clear, it is still a climb to even ensure Champions League. But I mean, Arsenal, well on them for figuring out how they can maintain their style of play, where their goals are coming from, and all of the players who have stepped up individually, frankly, everywhere across the field. I can't even begin to name all of the names we've named again, but just outstanding, honestly, clinical from Arsenal in this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, we're showing the versatility of I think they're probably the most versatile team in the league at the moment, because that game against Reading, they pushed Leah Williamson forward more as a midfielder, and her and Kim Little together was absolutely something sensational. It took a little while for them to warm up. Like, they got a goal early, which was many call a dubious penalty call in the first one, and then a slightly dodgy goal towards the end of the second half. But then
I don't think that was a dodgy goal. Once they started getting goals in the run of play, it was like the floodgates opened. And it was a struggle in the first half to finish it, but once they did, it was on. I'll actually say I don't love when Arsenal's been pushing Leah Williamson up into the center midfield. I actually much preferred how Arsenal played against Chelsea in the Conti Cup final, having her in the center back. I think that Arsenal can afford to do something like that and have somebody like Wubin Moy running the back line in a game versus Reading. But when it comes to the formation that you want to put out in this upcoming Champions League round, I think Leah Williamson needs to be running the back line and allow Kim Little to be at that 6 running the midfield.
But I will give a quick shout out to Reading, because defensively they were tough to break down. And I honestly think, even though they were 2-0 down at half time, it wasn't until McCundy scored that own goal that they let their heads drop, because they were so good until then.
And finally, the game that we're going to spend the most time on, the top of the table battle, Chelsea versus Manchester United. Chelsea took this 1-0, and I had my friend Amy on to discuss. Please enjoy. I'm here with Amy, my friend, United fan, teammate, who we've been meaning to have on the show for a very long time. Hi, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Archie. How are you, mate?
I'm pretty good. Avid listener, I forgot to add. Weekly listener of the pod.
Yes, love the pod. Turned a few people onto it as well. So
yeah.
continue to do the good work.
I think my first question is, can you say 3 things you admire about my abilities in the central midfield, please?
Let's start with some Sarah Ash praises here. I think you're very composed on the ball. You know what your next pass is going to be or what your next move is going to be before you get the ball. You have good vision, and you're just a very, very positive person to have on the pitch. You do keep your head, and you're very calm. So I appreciate that about you, because I'm obviously the complete opposite of that. Whereas
I don't feel like I kept my head at
head.
practice today, but I appreciate that.
No, I don't think we both did. So
All right. So for the listeners who don't know, Amy, I know your history and background in football. I'll call it for you. I'll translate. What is your history like growing up, watching the game, playing, coaching, etc.?
yeah, so growing up a massive Manchester United fan, thanks to my mum. She was a season ticket holder back in the day. Best, Lord, Charlton, and the men's side of things. Obviously, Man United women didn't have a club for a very long time, and I grew up playing football. Started playing when I was 10. Got forced to play in goal for long periods of my life, which I wasn't super happy about. But yeah, I ended up playing some decent teams in my time when I was younger. My one claim to fame is to say that I did play against Farrell Williams, one of the most gifted footballers I've ever seen, which she scored top bins left and right against me. And you just got to applaud that. And she was super young then too. She was probably only 16, 15, 16, but brilliant player. And then, kind of sort of realised that I probably wasn't going to be a professional footballer. The game in England wasn't that developed then. So got into coaching, coached soccer, got all my UEFA qualifications while I was back in England, and got a job in America. Went to fulfill the American dream of coaching soccer, or football, we call it. And here I am, almost 20 years later, still here in New York. Got a great group of women who we play soccer with, and I just really enjoy being part of that community.
All right, so we watched the game, the big top of the table battle that everybody was waiting for, Chelsea versus Manchester United. Obviously, Chelsea took it 1-0. Honestly, bit of a boring game. It was also pretty early, so maybe we were a little tired too. But overall thoughts for you on United's performance?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a boring game. I would say it was a tactical battle. I mean, Emma Hayes came out afterwards and said that Chelsea had performed tactically the way she wanted them to perform. It was a Chelsea performance, as she said. But I thought, for the first 20 minutes of the game, I thought United were pretty good, to be honest. They didn't create a lot of chances, but I thought that they dominated large portions of the game. Toon was a little disappointing for me. I don't think she got enough of the ball. I don't think she was on the ball enough to create chances. Russo had some sniffs. She didn't really have anything clear cut. I think there's 2 penalty incidents that have to be looked at there. And me and you were going back and forth about was it a soft one? Did Buchanan actually clip Paris? I mean, I've watched it back now and I've seen it, and it looks like she does. So, and then the Batley one against Carter, also it looks like a penalty to me. In terms of defensively, I thought Earps was outstanding, making 2 great saves at the beginning of the game to deny Kerr. And that was just a warning for Man United there. You've given Kerr 2 opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You give her another one, she's probably going to take it. And then she's ghosted in between 2 defenders. And it's a great pass. She's curled it, totally between the 2 players. And I think, if you look at Millie Turner's positioning, she's got to be a little bit disappointed there because there's 2 of them. There's Letitia and Turner. And she's ghosted between the 2 of them. Great first touch, and the finish is sublime. So you can't take anything away from Kerr for that. But yeah, like I said, I thought Man United huffed and puffed. Don't think we created really anything clear cut in the second half. And it's a disappointing one because, with United, we talked about how important it was for them to get results against the big 3 or the top teams in the country, and they went to Arsenal and they won, and that was huge, right? It was at the Emirates. It was a big game, and then it seems like Chelsea have always got this. I don't know if it's a psychological hold on us or whatever it is, but we just can't seem to get a result against them. They kind of just know how to beat us, and we don't know how to beat them. And I think that gone are the days where we can say, oh, this Manchester United team isn't experienced enough and don't have the experience to do these things, because now we look at it, we've got European champions in the team.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that anymore. You've won something big. So the mentality's there, the personalities are there. I don't know what Mark Skinner's approach is to substitutions. I don't know what his approach is to the new players we've brought in. I don't see the new players hardly ever, right? I mean, we're not seeing the new signings.
I was going to ask you, because you mentioned when we were watching it about how United always struggles against Chelsea, specifically at Chelsea. But I mean, the last game that United lost in the WSL was to Chelsea back in November. And other than that, they've either won or drawn. I think they've only drawn twice and otherwise won. I mean, is that the last hurdle that you think United needs to overcome to be able to say that this is their top spot?
Yeah, I think that they have to beat Chelsea. I mean, they have to be consistent throughout the season. Obviously, getting results against the top teams is very important. And we've seen them. They went away to City. They got a draw. That was okay. Mm-hmm. The Arsenal result was massive. We did play Arsenal when they were, probably their weakest point in the season, I would say. Mm-hmm. The two injuries that have come along after, the Beth Mead one happened during the United game, right?
Yeah.
And then the Miedemar happened after that. So they were super weakened, and Arsenal have picked it up a lot. So fair play to them for that. Chelsea just seem to have that mentality, right? They're mentality monsters. They know how to get the results when they need to get the results.
Like you said, Chelsea know how to get the result. United had more possession, created more chances. I think when you look at the stats, it's the same number of shots on goal, but Chelsea can capitalize. And you can attribute that to Chelsea, the mentality, to the fact that they have Sam Kerr and Alessia Russo just kind of was nowhere this game. And maybe that's right now the difference between Sam Kerr and Alessia Russo at the number 9. But if you look at this game, that was the only thing that United did wrong, really.
Yeah, no, lack of finishing. I mean, lack of clear-cut opportunities, really, I would say. I mean, nothing really created for the forwards. Alessia Russo had one strike at goal where forced the keeper to make a save. Other than that, I don't really remember the keeper having to make anything, really outstanding to deny Man United any chances. And you look at the depth then coming off the bench. Do we fancy Martha Thomas to make a difference? I mean, Rachel Williams has made a difference this season, so I can't really say too much about her. I think she's come up clutch with some goals when we've needed her to. The one at Reading was, superb, and we needed that. We needed that at that moment. But yeah, I mean, there's a difference, isn't there, between Sam Kerr and Alessia Russo in terms of world-class quality at this point. And I think that Russo's got a lot of room to grow. I think she's going to become phenomenal. But Sam Kerr's been around and she's played in the NWSL. Very experienced, World Cups. She knows how to play as a striker and how to finish, and that was very evident today.
Okay, so what are the missing pieces for United then to take them to the next level?
Yeah, I think Millie Turner is. I'm not throwing her under the bus either. I think that she has good qualities, but I think that she gets exposed for pace, and she's not pacey enough for me at the back. And Laetitia is young, but also fantastic. Been a fantastic first season for her at Man United, and I think somebody paired next to Laetitia with speed, like somebody like a Buchanan, who is incredible at the back, reads the game well. Covers the ground quickly. So somebody like that next to her would be great. In terms of the centre of the park, we're thin in the centre of the park, right? You lose Hayley Ladd, no one else can come in there and do that job. And I think she's been Man United's player of the season so far. She's unbelievable.
She's my player of the last 3 seasons for United.
I know.
I've fallen fully in love with her. I love her so much. I'll wear her jersey. I don't even care if it's United. United's been in the WSL for 4 seasons, right? First 2 with Stoney, 4th place finishes both years. Last year with Skinner, 4th place finish. So, I mean, first year you come in and 4th place finish, that's fantastic for your first year in the WSL. Second year, okay, a lot happened. Kristen Press got injured. Tobin Heath got injured. Leah Galton tore her ACL, I believe. Like, a lot of things happened that tanked that season. Last year, that's a rebuilding year, basically. It's just recalibrating with a new coach. It's Skinner's first year. I think that going into this year, a lot of United fans would have been really pleased with just Champions League, right? And now it kind of feels like it's going to be a disappointment if United don't take the title.
I think if United finish in the top 3, that's a success. I don't think that's an underachievement. And I'm gonna say that with the caveat that if they won the FA Cup,
Right.
That would be a very successful season for Man United, right? Qualifying for the Champions League and winning a trophy. I obviously want us to win the league. Yes, of course I do. And I look at the remaining fixtures and I think, okay, we have got probably the toughest run-in, I think, out of all of the three teams. But, City still has to play Arsenal.
Yep.
Chelsea still has to play Arsenal. We still have to play Arsenal and City. So there's still a lot to play for.
Yep.
And I think also the bottom of the league looks so interesting that anything could happen. I mean, look at Brighton today. Anyone think that City would struggle and need like an 89th minute goal by Shaw to get the winner? And so the bottom of the league is going to be super interesting too, because now Spurs are being dragged into it. So I think there's only 3 points that separate the bottom four. And then you've got the top of the league, which Champions League comes into play as well, because Chelsea, they just really want that Champions League title. And let's not forget how hard it is to win the Champions League. So if Man United's ambition is to say, okay, we want to be in a Champions League, and then Russo and Batley and Earps, they're all going to sign new contracts if we get into the Champions League. Okay, we're in the Champions League, that's great. But there's only one English team that's ever won the Champions League. One. So what you're saying, that you're in the Champions League now, how hard it is to win the Champions League once you're in it, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, as a Man United fan, yes, I want to win a league, but also it would be really nice to get a trophy under our belt and build from there, because you get a trophy and that builds a winning mentality. So why don't we focus on the Conti Cup? Why don't we focus on the FA Cup and get a trophy? Right? Like, I don't understand this. Like, the Conti Cup is like a nothing cup for us. We don't care about it. Well, why?
Right.
We've never won it. So why do you not care about it? It's not like we're Chelsea or Arsenal where we've won it. And we can just be like, oh yeah, let's field these second string teams. And I don't understand that.
Maybe
mentality.
It's me as somebody from the US, but the Conti Cup victory feels like quite the consolation. Like, if I'm going to focus on something, I'm going to put getting into Champions League or winning the league or even winning the FA Cup, frankly, before winning the Conti Cup. But especially I'm going to focus on the league, whether that's making it into the top 3 or winning it before Conti Cup. But I feel like there's something to be said about getting a trophy under your belt and knowing what that feels like.
And then getting the rest of the squad to feel that. Like, you've got Earps and Russo and Toon who won the championship in the summer, but what about the rest of them?
You mentioned Toon, Russo. Earp specifically has been really outspoken about the fact that she's in the prime of her career and she wants to be playing in the Champions League. And that's it. She wants to be playing Champions League football at this moment in her life. If United somehow slip into 4th, do you fear losing the 3 of them and just completely falling and having to rebuild from ground up?
I think I fear losing Earps and Russo more than Toon. Toon's a Manchester girl. She loves Manchester United. Like,
well, isn't Russo a United girl through and through too?
Yeah, I mean, her and Tooney are like best mates as well.
Yeah, they're super cute.
Russo's from London. She's from Kent, so she's not from Manchester originally, but she's got Manchester United in her blood, as I do. But if the club aren't matching the ambitions of the players, and they've been through a lot of turmoil there at that club, like there's been, like you said, when Stoney left after during COVID, really, it was still during COVID. There was so much uncertainty around what was going to happen with the women's team and what the owners were doing. As the uncertainty still remains for the men's team as well. Like, the club is in disarray with the ownership. The Glazers came in, they put their debt into the club and didn't invest. So you start to lose players.
Yep. I mean, I feel like I talked about this last week, just with regards to Kansas City, finished last place 2 years ago, and they were in the championship in the NWSL this year. And that is that is only because of the investment that the ownership made in the facilities that draws the good players. And you can't blame these players for wanting to go somewhere where they're treated better, where they have better facilities, where they have better trainers, where they have better medical. You can't blame them at all. And I especially with what I'm about to ask you next, like I want to put that out there. I don't blame any of them for going anywhere where they will get more money, get better treatment, anything like that. I feel like it needs to be said that the women's game is different than the men's game. And we're at a point in the women's game where this is a huge inflection point, and we have the ability to decide where the game goes and how to build it and what it looks like. And it doesn't have to mirror the men's game. And very specifically, it doesn't have to mirror the men's game in the sense that it doesn't have to be all about who has the most money. I would love if it wasn't about who has the most money and those clubs rule all, because I think that's a part of the men's game that people find really gross and disgusting. And it kind of makes it less pure and less about the football of it and more about the money of it. And it's too late for the men's game, but it's not too late for the women's game.
So is your suggestion that like the clubs that are paired with their men aren't paired with the men anymore and branch off to become their own? Because that's a whole other thing of investment and stability. Yep. And you've seen the league in this country and how many times it's taken off and folded and taken off and folded, taken off and folded. And now it feels like, yes, okay, this is stability. The NWSL has stability now, and they're starting to add teams and the expansions and Kansas City, leading the way with their women's only facilities, which is outstanding. But again, that comes with investment and willingness to invest, and the ownership there, is Kansas City, right?
It's money. It's Patrick Mahomes bringing in a lot of money.
Exactly.
Yep. I don't know what the answer is. We have this discussion a lot because there's upsides to, like, the WSL structure, and there's downsides to it. And the downside is definitely a lack of visibility. Like, the women's game in England may never actually get out from under the men's game. It may always be in the shadow of it because it's always going to be Chelsea men and Chelsea women. And the Chelsea men have such a storied history. That's something that's hard to beat when you're building a big league. Okay, well, maybe not Chelsea. We can stay with United. United men. United men have such a storied
Chelsea don't
history.
have a storied
David
history.
Beckham's left, whatever. Okay. So, I mean, in that sense, that's a big downside. But in the other sense, the WSL has grown way faster than the NWSL. And that's saying something, because the NWSL has grown pretty fast for a league that is doing what it can with very little money. And I think the WSL has grown that fast because of the money that's been poured into it from these clubs that have money because of the men's side. So I don't quite have the answer. I feel like we'll put a pause on it and we can come back to that discussion, because, I mean, if we come up with an answer, we should just go worldwide with that, Amy, and just solve all of the problems.
We would solve all of the women's soccer problems in the world. And then we'd be honored at, the Ballon d'Or celebrations. It would be me and you, Sarah.
We'll be honorary best 11.
Center mid. We will. Center mids.
Shout out Colette. Thanks for training us.
Thanks for making us the best, Colette.
All right, Amy, we're going to close with this question that I know you're going to hate, but I'm going to ask you because it makes me laugh.
Oh. Okay.
If you had to support one women's team other than Manchester United, who are you supporting?
Well, that's a tough one because
why is it Arsenal?
So a lot of my family and friends are Spurs fans, and they will really hate me for saying this, but it would be Arsenal, because I've grown up watching Arsenal and just them leading the way as a women's club, and being so successful throughout the years. The legendary players that have come and gone through Arsenal. I mean, everybody's come and gone through Arsenal. You look at them like your Kelly Smiths, your Leanne Sandersons, Casey Stoney. So many good players at Arsenal throughout the years. And even now, I've got a soft spot for them just because of Leah Williamson. And I think Kim Little is absolutely phenomenal.
So underrated.
Just class last week. Absolute class. So it probably would be Arsenal, and everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, of course, yeah, glory, bandwagon, jumping on the Arsenal bandwagon, blah, 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 because they won a lot.
I asked you to jump on it. You didn't jump on it. Don't worry.
Well, also, I mean, the one other reason for it is that when I was growing up and we used to help out in UEFA coaching licenses. So my team would go and be bodies to help people who took the license courses. And so we had a couple of Arsenal players on our course, Claire Wheatley, who was like way back in the day. And we just loved being part of that. And she was a professional, and she invited us to the cup final, and it was at Charlton Athletic. We went to the Valley and they won. And, it was just nice. We were like singing her name because we knew her, and like, just
that's awesome.
Those stories and those connections are why I think Arsenal's just a great football club for that reason, and I will never say that again, so don't ever ask me to. Thank you.
I won't. All right, Amy, thanks so much for coming on. I'll see you in a week in person, or at treatment in 2 days.
Treatment in 2 days, probably.
Okay.
For both of us.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right, mate. No worries.
Now let's go around the world, around the world.
France, there is just 1 point between PSG and Lyon. Both teams won this weekend, keeping the title race feisty. However, as for the third Champions League spot, Paris FC are breaking away from the pack. So it'll be interesting to see if they can maintain this momentum until the end of the season.
Over to Spain. 21 wins out of 21 games for Barcelona. A crushing victory over Levante. 4-0 sees the previous champions steamrolling this league with an almost guaranteed title at the end.
To Mexico, Guadalajara is currently atop of the table after a 1-0 win. Monterrey, who previously held the top spot, are not due to play till after we record, so on Tuesday. So we will see next week if they've managed to keep their perfect run going.
And finally, to Germany. Back-to-back wins for Wolfsburg keep them on top of the table with Bayern Munich not that far behind. With past performances, it seems it's going to be between these two teams for who takes the top spot. However, third place Champions League spot is very much up for grabs with both Hoffenheim and Eintracht Frankfurt level pegging.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
So, keeping on the theme of this episode, which is some fast, frantic topics, we're going to hit some international football with the news that is coming out. And the big news that is coming out, that with the NWSL expansion, officially Utah have their team back. The Utah Royals will be coming back in 2024.
Yep. So we knew that Utah was getting a team in 2024. We just didn't know if they were going to come back as the Royals, and it's official that they are the Utah Royals. They've released a new logo. Some people find it to be very different than the old logo. I find it to be very similar.
I was like, I thought it was the same logo. You had to tell me that it was a different logo.
It's kind of different. But I'm glad we talk about this because I'm not trying to disparage anybody on social media who's being positive about this, because it is a positive that the league is expanding and the fans in Utah are getting their team back. And that is all a positive. And this new ownership, it's women owned now. And people are really leaning into that and highlighting that. And that's all well and good, right? But I just don't want us to get distracted and move ahead in full steam ahead without recognizing some things that we need to, I think, reckon with from the previous Utah team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The culture surrounding Utah last time was painful, to put it mildly. There was lots of misogyny. There was lots of racist remarks going on. You know, it wasn't great.
To say the least, yeah. I mean, under the previous owner, there was, like you said, toxicity, racism, misogyny across the board in the front office, towards players on the field. There have been multiple coaches who coached for the Utah Royals who aren't allowed to coach in the NWSL anymore for at least for a certain amount of time. And I think that there's a lot of layers to this. We can start here. And then I think we also need to look at, and I guess let's just say there's a lot of things. When I say they need to be reckoned with, what I mean is that I don't think that all of us as NWSL fans who really want to move forward in a positive way and be able to support this Utah team, I don't think that a lot of us can fully until some of the past things that were frankly never addressed. The team was sold to Kansas City and that was it. Like, yes, it was addressed in the reports, in the investigations, but it has not been addressed by anybody that was a part of the Utah organization or is part of the current organization. And I think the most important part of that is that a part of the current organization. And I think for all of us to be able to move forward in a positive way and be excited for this and excited for the fans and everything, we need to go back and address what went wrong and just make it public in a way. And let's come on to kind of what all of those things are. I think you named one of them, which is within the team itself, the culture around it was absolutely toxic in many ways.
Yeah. We've seen it with the AD French and the racism that came out of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. For those who don't know, I mean, this was an incident, obviously, during the old Utah Royals when Portland was visiting, and fans in Utah who'd gone to the Utah Royals game were making racist remarks towards AD French.
I also believe there was monkey noises, which is just...
racist remarks.
Yeah, racist remarks. There were monkey noises.
And I mean, I want to be very clear here and say that not all Utah sports fans are like this. In fact, we know the majority of them aren't. But I think that it's important that you highlight that, because that incident isn't specific to that one game at the Utah Royals Stadium. There have been other incidents in Utah over the past couple years of sports fans, namely in college actually, going to sports games and being really racist towards the opposing team. So I think all of this, and then you couple that with it's Utah. So
that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. I have an issue with it being Utah because from my limited British knowledge, but we've got female and female identifying players who could come to Utah. The abortion rights in Utah is next to nothing. It's a very Mormon state, and they obviously don't believe it's right. And also, queer rights are, again, next to nothing.
I think that's...
And we have a lot of queer players in the NWSL, openly queer players.
Yep. And I think that, I mean, look, Salt Lake City is a place that a lot of players have said they like being. I just am trying to say, like, we're not here to, like, neither of us are trashing Utah. This is a larger conversation that also pertains to Florida, for example, to the Orlando teams.
There's other states.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you bring up queer rights, because especially with everything happening in this country right now, where there's a lot of discussion around, transgender players in sports, and, there's transgender players in the NWSL, and for them to have to move to Utah, a state that doesn't recognize them as equal to somebody else is pretty absurd. And that's not just a conversation like we were just saying around Utah. This is a larger conversation that we've had around NWSL expansion and where they go next, but it's still something, to bring it full circle, that I think needs to be addressed by this new organization. Do you agree with that?
100%. They've got to be able to say that they will support their players in whatever way it needs to be, whether it's just financially, morally, whatever it may be, but it can't be just their players. It's also got to be visiting teams. Like we talk about Quinn all the time. I'm not saying Quinn's going to come to Utah full time, but when they play, they have to be able to be afforded that little bit of protection. Yeah,
there has to be an acknowledgement of what transpired and who was hurt. And beyond that, I think that there has to be a public recognition of rules that are being put into place to ensure that incidents like this don't happen, and that their players are protected, and that anybody who comes to play them is protected as well. And I think that needs to be addressed. And once it is, I think that most NWSL fans can be able to say, like, great, like, let's go forward. But it hasn't been addressed. And that's something that I think that the new ownership would do well in addressing. All right, moving from NWSL news to international team news. Let's talk Canada women's soccer. So news out of Canada from this past week that many players from the team went before Parliament to share their story and just in the fight for equal pay and equity. And there was a lot of news around what happened with Christine Sinclair. She basically got on the stand and shared a story of former president of Canada Soccer, Nick Bontis, notably also current vice president of CONCACAF. So still in all of our lives. I'm just going to share what Christine Sinclair said. She said, quote, "On a personal note, I've never been more insulted than I was by Canada Soccer's own president, Nick Bontis, last year, as we met with him to discuss our concerns. I was tasked with outlining our compensation ask on behalf of the women's national team. The president of Canada Soccer listened to what I had to say, and then later in the meeting referred back to it as, quote, what was it Christine was bitching about?
There are no words. There are no words, but I will find some. It's painful. It is painful when you see how much the Canada Soccer Federation promoted and bigged up the fact that their men's team had qualified for the World Cup for the first time in however many years. And like talking about how it was the greatest game of Canadian football when they played a certain match. And it's like, your women's team won Olympic gold. What the hell are you talking about? And the fact that they still haven't been compensated for it. The fact that it's come out that the only reason they got to go to the Olympics is because a private sponsor gave them the money to go to the Olympics.
Yep. And it's still funding now for the World Cup.
And it's still funding.
Yep.
They're still doing it. They're like, I don't have an issue with private sponsors being involved. Like, we see it all the time with teams over here in the WSL and the England team. That, you know, sports companies, you know, betting companies, loads of companies will come in and be like, we will just give you that extra bit of comfort here, have some money. But to be solely reliant,
well, and it also can't be
funds?
because your federation spent all the money on the men.
Exactly.
That can't be it.
Like,
it can't be it.
Like, exactly.
Yeah. Frankly, there are very few words. Canada Soccer. I mean, even down to the fact that this isn't speaking specifically about the Canadian international team, but when we're talking about the value that Canada places on women's soccer, just this past week, TSN signed a contract that they would air NWSL matches. The majority of the Canadian international team plays in the NWSL, and they haven't been airing matches. You mentioned before you can't buy a Canada women's soccer jersey. If you want a Christine Sinclair jersey, you got to go buy a Portland one, because sorry, you can't get that from the Canada shop online.
Or you have to pay an absolute fortune to get it personalized, in the fact that you have to manually put it in.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see where this goes. I'm happy that the players are obviously speaking up for themselves. I'm happy that they were able to go before Parliament. It does seem that the Federation is acting faster than most were because it has been so public, and that's positive. I want to caution everybody and say the news did come to light that obviously with former President Nick Bontis stepping down, they instated a new president, Charmaine Cooks. She's a Canadian Olympic legend, and with this instatement, she became the first woman and first woman of color to lead the organization. And I'm not disparaging this at all. Like, that's so incredible and that's deserved. But I also do want to say that she has been part of the board for almost a decade. And Canada Soccer, in my opinion, seems to have an underlying agenda that this, you know, was released in the news, and this appointment came at this exact moment in time. And it's disappointing to me that something that could be so positive and could be so monumental and could be just those two things has come under these circumstances.
It's not even that. I feel like it's the promoting within, in the fact that they're going to continue the party line. I don't see change. I'm going to be honest. If you're promoting a board member that's been part of the board for the last 10 years.
I see change. I do. And I think the fact that the fight is public is a big reason why. But we'll continue to report on this. And finally, news out of Spain, Allie.
Yes, Spain. News is that the 15 players, who, let's not forget, all play for the same team of Barcelona, who refused to play under the regime in Spain, are currently negotiating their return. That's all we know at the time, for the time being. But I'm excited to see what that will mean for the Spanish team and whether they will get the parity that they wanted.
Same.
So that is all for this week. We are taking a brief break for next week because it's only FA Cup really here in the UK, and Sarah's decided she wants to go on her holidays.
Mainly it's that I'm going on vacation, everybody.
Mainly Sarah's going on holiday.
I'm taking a break, okay?
And it's Mother's Day on the Sunday, and I want to spend some time with my mother. So we will be back on the 29th of March with all sorts of updates with WSL. It's the women's football weekend that weekend, so we
get to cover Champions League that week too. It'll be a huge week back. You'll only miss us for a week, everybody.
Yep, so until then, check Patreon, check our socials. We'll still be here, there and everywhere. But for now, I've been Allie.
I've been Sarah. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.